We can speak now to Joseph Kotrie-Monson, a defence lawyer, and Gary Brown, a former sub-postmaster. Gary, Joseph, thanks both for being with us. And let me go first to you, Gary. You've heard the news now. A new law is going to be brought in to exonerate everyone who was convicted.
It's about time, isn't it? It doesn't mean they're not doing it fantastic. It should have been already done years ago. These people have been suffering. They've been suffering, and it shouldn't have taken this long. It's only the programme what's done it. And I think that's a travesty. It's a real travesty that a drama series has brought the government to do this sort of thing. It should have been done.
And Joseph, before I bring you in and we talk about the sort of the legal ramifications of all of this, Gary, just tell us your story and how much the post office, or more accurately, how much that accounting software Horizon said that you owed them.
I was a postmaster for 14 years, from 2000 to February 2014. In the end, what finished me was a £32,000 loss. But I've been putting money in for 12 out of those 14 years, making up the difference in the losses. So 32 in the end did it for me, what they took off me in the end, yeah.
Well, look,
and they're quick to take it off me as well.
Oh, absolutely. Well, look, the exonerations we'll get into some more detail of that in a moment, Gary, but let me bring Joseph in now. And Joseph, before we heard from the Prime Minister today, it was always suggested that this was going to be perhaps the course of action, but there was some concern, wasn't there, that in this kind of mass exoneration, you could end up exonerating people who'd actually done something wrong. And the way around it, from the Post Office Minister, Kevin Hollerake, is to sign a declaration of innocence. What did you make of that?
Well, it's a fudge, isn't it? But that's on the government, not on these innocent people. Innocent people should go free. That is one of the priorities of our justice system, the golden thread. Some people who are guilty will also go free. That's the price of our justice. I have to say these measures, as Gary Brown rightly says, years overdue. Rishi Sunak calls it one of the great miscarriages of justice in history. Gary Brown hits the nail on the head again. He says, why did it take a TV drama in that case for you to get your act together? Excuse me, but the wheels of politics, of course, only move fast where there's scandal, don't they? This fast track will happen. It doesn't go nearly far enough, though. And the reason for that is this. These quasi-public bodies should not be allowed to prosecute without oversight. It's what's happened here. It's what happened with Customs and Excise before their prosecutions were brought in-house to the CPS with the London City bond case. 70 people wrongfully convicted. Similar circumstances, not on this scale. Even the Serious Fraud Office withholding evidence in their biggest ever case. My client, Paul Bond, goes to prison before the Court of Appeal eventually exonerate him. In that case, not only were people not investigated criminally, nobody even lost their jobs. Until prosecutors know there will be consequences when you behave like this, criminal consequences, you're held to the same standards as the people you're pursuing. This will continue systematically every few years as it does, and simply addressing, as important as it is, the fate of the 700, such as Gary Brown, whose lives were destroyed by this. It's not enough if you don't honour that at the same time with making sure it doesn't happen again. And apart from with this lone voice, David Davis, who seems to have identified that this is the major issue, nobody in power seems to be talking about it. Why? Because it's easy to tap into our emotions about it and say, well, we'll try and solve the superficial problem.
Well, Joseph, I'm glad you brought that up because it was one of my questions. Just explain, and briefly if you can, Joseph, why it's so important that you think that these bodies, like the Post Office, should have the power of private prosecution removed.
Well, they should either have it removed or in some cases, at very least, they should be accountable to prosecutors. They are the poachers and they're the gamekeepers all rolled into one. They're the ones who decide what evidence is relevant to show to the defence. It's why we have these miscarriages of justice every so often. Wasn't that boy Liam Allen London CPS even accused of rape when there was evidence that showed that he couldn't have been guilty, not shown to the defence till the last minute. There are loads of such cases because you need external supervision of prosecutors. You actually need it of the CPS too, but the CPS prosecutors are much more aware of the code of Crown prosecutors, the public interest, the need to be balanced and restrained. Where you've got private organisations like Royal Mail, even the RSPCA, God bless them for what they do in respect of animals, but some of their prosecutions are often kind of gung-ho and don't really, are found out, as was found out here, to be target-driven, media-driven, result-driven rather than truth and justice-driven. That can't be allowed to happen. And it's a problem with our system, allowing these quasi-governmental and small governmental departments to prosecute. It promotes injustice and it allows a lack of accountability when you're dealing with people's lives to flourish.
Okay. Joe, much wider issue as well, isn't it, Joseph, that perhaps will be debated in the Commons, because, as I said, it is ongoing. They are still discussing what the government are going to do. And Gary, back to you. I mean, this news has just happened. What's your plan here for getting the compensation, or have you already had it in other circumstances?
No plan at all. I don't know much about what's just been said about the compensation or recompense, what they're saying. So that's all up in the air at the moment. Hopefully as quick as possible. We've been waiting long enough for it, as I've been saying. Can I just bring something up as well?
Please.
It's come out of the inquiry. I think I'm right in saying that the investigators two visited me and interviewed me in my own bed, in a spare bedroom. They run roughshod over everything. They wouldn't let anybody speak up for me in the room. I had a national executive member from the union sat beside of me who wasn't allowed to talk. And then I think it's come out of the inquiry that the investigators get 40% of what were taken off me. So in my case, 40% of 32,000 in bonus. Now, I think it's correct. So if I'm wrong, please correct me yourself. But that's morally wrong, apart from...
I don't have the detail of that. Quite a serious accusation, but one that we'll certainly will explore. But I guess what it points to in your case, Gary, is the way that there was a presumed guilt about what you had done, regardless of what you said.
Of course. I would presume guilty straight away. No two ways about it. And I'm as time's going on, I mean, I've been numb for years about it. Been completely numb. I couldn't care less. Now I'm getting to the point where I'm getting angry, really angry about it. Heads need to roll. Money needs to be paid out, but heads need to roll.
And when you say that, Gary, who are you talking about? The people who were at the post office at the time? Because obviously they're in different jobs now. You're thinking about the people at Fujitsu who brought in the software. Who's in your sights?
I would say it could be hundreds. Everybody's talking about Paula Venables. She wasn't the first, and she won't be the last. The investigators were corrupt.
Okay.
When they investigated me in my bedroom, they're supposed to have recorded it. I asked for freedom of information about that. It mostly blacked out. But things weren't included in what was said. And I know for a fact it lasted, that my interview with those investigators lasted a lot longer than what they said. So they're just corrupt from top to bottom as a post office.
And there's plenty more to look into in this particular instance. But Gary, I hope that with the new legislation announced, it's giving you some sense of closure. And of course, it gives you now something to aim at to get the compensation, the money that you deserve back. Look, Gary Brown, a former postmaster, thank you very much for speaking to us. And Joseph Kotrie-Monson, thanks both for taking the time to talk to us this afternoon.
Thank you very much indeed.